All right, we are live. Hello and welcome to episode 244 of Together VHA. We are closing down on that 250 mark. Craig, how are you doing?
Pretty quick. Yeah, good. Thank you. It's a nice little bank holiday here in America, so an extra day off a 3-day weekend was always helpful. How about yourself?
Yeah, not so bad at all. Obviously not a day off here, but I know you guys have got President's Day. But I feel like most Albion fans will feel like their weekend's continuing after the results yesterday, because it was an absolute monster of a game. And I was lucky enough to be there. Robin was as well, but he's not able to join us today. Adam is not very well either, so it's just your duo here in myself and Craig. First of all, though, Craig, we've got a bit of a busy week, really, haven't we, in the last 7 days for the Albion? Notably, the end of the winter competitions in the Asian Cup and the African Cup of Nations. Not much to report on in the Asian Cup. Obviously, Mitoma came home. Everything's good to go. Really, the only conversation to be had there is Jurgen Klinsmann is exactly who we thought he was in terms of a manager. But for the AFCON, young player of the tournament, player of the match, and now AFCON champion, Simon Adinkra, had a hell of a tournament, didn't he?
Yeah. I think he did really well. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I watched every minute of the AFCON, but I think just you get 2 assists in the final. Obviously, people are going to start paying attention. 22 years old and plays for Brighton also comes with a borderline reputation nowadays as well. So, just over the moon for him. You can imagine, McAllister with the World Cup and just, winning your equivalent of the Euros as we can relate. I'm sure is an amazing feeling, especially at just 22 years old. So, stunning achievement, especially, with Nigeria in the final. So, over the moon. And as of yesterday, I'm glad he's back with us now, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, when he went with them, he was called up injured, wasn't he? And we were all a bit worried that they were going to run him into the ground and cause him to get more hurt. But really, we've had the absolute best possible outcome. He's been rehabbed back to full fitness, given game time, and has came back fully fit, raring to go, and with a trophy where you can see just from yesterday alone, he's flying high, isn't he? Like, he's just so good.
Yeah. I mean, they couldn't run him into the ground more than we were, to be honest. I feel like he was playing every single minute, and God knows how he was able to do that. So, same with Mitoma, right? Just, I hope they get fit halfway through the tournament so that we can play them a little bit. Turned out to be quite pivotal for them. So, really cool. And again, you're seeing sort of a backlash almost. The same with McAllister when he came back. This is this sort of heightened confidence, maybe, and we'll make the most of it. But great player and important to us, as we saw yesterday.
Yeah, how important, like, just of 2 actual real life wingers are.
I know. It's just, I think we'll go on to the team sheets as well for yesterday in a bit, but it's nice to have these players back, isn't it? I think we sort of looked at January going, crap, like AFCON, Asian Cup. That's our 2 first wingers just gone for a month and a bit.
Yeah. Ansu Fati being hurt as well. Obviously, we know all about, and Solly March being out for the year.
And Ciso out. They're just no wingers. So, very happy.
We've had a bit of a patchy bit of form lately as well, with obviously a loss at Luton being as bad as it was, and then bouncing back with an absolute hammering against Palace, followed up by a really disappointing defeat against Spurs. So it was really difficult to know what was going to come in this one. It's a little tougher, even more so when you're playing a team twice in the space of about 3 weeks. I know we beat them 5-2 the first time, but Wilder had had a little bit more time to get in there. People were hopeful that he would be the one to turn them around. Obviously, they had a hell of a result at Luton the weekend before, winning 3-1. It was never going to be an easy game, I think. The idea was, and for the first 13 minutes, it felt like it was going to be quite an open affair, didn't it? But obviously, we all know what happened next.
I think just we can talk about the team, but I think it's more like you could see what they were trying to do and what the setup was, and obviously that's a direct consequence of having 90 minutes against them 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or however long it was. So I was anticipating it to be a tough game, right? Like you said, you had peaks and troughs in the last few weeks. You win, you lose, you win, you lose, and it's like, okay, where are we? And then coming off a win against Luton, their wins are very few and far between. So I'm sure that was a confidence boost for them. But after 13 minutes, it all went down to Swanee, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Thank you, Mason Holgate, for being an absolute thug. I really can't even call it any other word. Like an absolute scumbag. Like he should be on the streets, like getting into fights, like football factory style, not playing real football. It was outrageous. Let's talk team sheets, and then we'll talk what happened in that first 13 minutes, because it really dictated the entire flow of the game from then on, really. Wilder went to his patented 3/5 at the back system that we've all been expecting. Nothing really shocking there. Fotheringham in goal. Holgate was at the back, of course. They had Gus Hamer started the game this time. McAtee as well, on loan from City. And Ollie Norwood on the bench this time, not playing against us like he did last time. But for the Albion, Verbruggen back into goal. Once again, the keeper rotation continues. And then we had an interesting back four. Lamptey at left back, Duncan Van Heck in the middle, and then Webster definitely at right back. No ifs, ands, and buts about that one. It was very apparent from the first minute that we were playing a back four and Adam Webster was at right back. More about him later for sure. Gross and Gilmore in the middle of the park. Adingra and Mitoma on the wing. Welbeck up top and Buonanotte in that number 10 role. When you looked at that side, we've just talked about it a little bit already in terms of returns, but I think one thing stuck out to everybody, and that is this is actually a real-life Roberto De Zerbi formation again, isn't it? A true 4-2-3-1 with real-life wingers.
Yeah. And it makes such a difference. Again, we sort of have to preface everything that we're going to say because we played 75 minutes against a really bad Premier League team that was also down to 10 men. So, right, it does need to be put into perspective a little bit, but you only beat what's in front of you. But yeah, in terms of our team and what we put out, barring Webster at right back, which is a bit odd and changed at halftime anyway, it's what you want, right? And you've got some people coming into form. Van Heck is a staple now. Buonanotte is coming into it. Welbeck is underrated by some. It's what you wanted. So I didn't have any complaints about that. Again, Joel Veltman not at right back and putting Webster out there. I don't know what that says to you, or what that says to anyone, but it seems to be a De Zerbi side, like you said.
Yeah, it seems to be some serious easing in for people like Veltman and Estepinian, who played a lot of minutes, but then rested this week. I suspect he maybe felt something, even the tiniest thing, and De Zerbi's like, absolutely effing not. Like, you're not going out there this time if we don't need to. Didn't seem to feel too much when he came on because he was absolutely brilliant on that left-hand side for like 15 minutes, terrorized them from left back, which says all you need to know, really. That first 13 minutes was actually quite a tough one because they sat back. We dominated possession, as usual, the 79% possession in that first 13 minutes. But we both had a shot each. And their shot, XG on their shot was not half bad at all. They were happy to hit us on the break. And for that first 13 minutes, well, I mean, it was longer than that, really, because there was a couple of horrible breaks after the fact. But for that first 13 minutes, they were definitely set up as a game plan, weren't they? Like proper Wilder football in the kind of mold of that year that Leicester won the Premier League. Sit back, hit on the break with really quick players and rely on kind of taking your chances when they come.
Yeah, and we know that works against us, right? It's just that low block and fast counter is something that we've seen so often. And I was like, the first 10 minutes, it was like, okay, this is going to be either a really long day or it's just going to be frustrating. So it was an open 10 minutes. You could see what they wanted to do, even by the team sheet. And it looked like it was going to work. It was a good effort on goal that Verbruggen got to. It was a good save and pushed it out. So it looked like it was all going to be a bit of an end-to-end game, especially towards the end when people get tired. But yeah, one centre-back decided to actually just throw it out that window.
Yeah, and that man's name is Mason Holgate. And yeah, so I was in the stadium and I was to the left of the goal. And from my perspective, we were also on the front row, which was not intended, by the way. We went with just like best available because the tickets were low.
Yeah.
And like when we got there and realized we were like front row, I was like, Jesus Christ, I've never been this low in my life. But it was actually really interesting, like just watching it from super low. And unfortunately, it gave us a really good straight line view of him coming in horizontally at Mitoma. And what I found fascinating was that watching it from our perspective, and you don't know what the cameras can pick up right on the TV, but the referee wasn't giving that foul initially. Like he was not really bothered about it until the referee, until the lino like signaled like that's definitely a foul, mate. Like that's quite a bad one. Like he probably is worth a booking there. And then he called the foul and went over. So it's really worth noting very early on here that what we're about to talk about, Stuart Atwell thought wasn't even a foul initially. But what unfolded from there was probably the quickest VAR review I've ever seen in the Premier League. Haven't you? Like, can you think of a quicker one?
No, I assume it was a screenshot and went, yeah, there you go. I say I don't think we need to talk about this one, but it's like you said, it's he's been completely sort of bought out by VAR there because it's shocking. Like, and I think just how exasperated Mason Holgate deserves an Oscar as well. But it was wild, and I think just my thing was if you hit him like 6 inches lower, that's a knee injury in the rest of the season, right? You're kind of borderline lucky that he got it so wrong that it actually hit his thigh, which is one of your strongest muscles. So wild. Refereeing is just catastrophic as always. We refer to our previous podcast if you want to talk about that, but just being able to, a quick screenshot on the screen, you got that horribly wrong and you know it. Even if the lino was flagging and he saw it and the main ref didn't, it's wild. But you get the right decision. It's an awful challenge. People have been sharing it over social media for ages. Everyone can see how bad it is. And then they're down to 10 men, right? And they lose a centre back. And weirdly enough, wait 10 minutes to make a change. But okay.
Classic Wilder. Yeah. Everyone else's fault but his own, though. Definitely not his fault. Yeah, I think I was saying to you guys yesterday that it's the worst tackle I've ever seen live, comfortably. Like I've never seen a tackle in real life.
You had a prime time view, so yeah, I'm not surprised.
And I see that everybody else has picked up on it too from our conversations yesterday in WhatsApp. I've heard it a few times, and I've started seeing social media churning it out as well. But like, it really gives me vibes of that Britos tackle.
I saw that this morning.
And we were talking about it yesterday about how similar it was in terms of if his foot was planted, that's a career ender. And I think it's the same thing here. Like if Knockout's foot was planted against Watford, he's never playing football again. Like, and likewise here, if Mitoma's foot was planted, he's done. Like, I know it was a little bit higher than it needed to be, but I think the sheer velocity of it is it's just snapping him.
I think any more power into it, and you're talking about a career-threatening injury, right? So, and that's what I'm saying is just thank God he got it so wrong, and that he is so bad, because with less effort and directly on the knee, you're talking about the same outcome.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I can only presume that it took the 6 seconds it took on VAR instead of the 3, because like the VAR fellow, I can't remember who it was, Oliver thingy, Michael Oliver, I think was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And I think I can only assume it was the extra 3 seconds just because he was pissing himself laughing at the fact that he didn't give it initially as a red.
You dopey.
Like, are you joking, mate? Why am I having to show you this? Off he goes anyway, down the tunnel. And Albion, if there's ever a team that's going to go to the team bottom of the league and conceded, 63 goals or something this season and make this a difficult game to win, it's Brighton and Hove Albion. But within 7 minutes, it was not the case. We took the lead, and 4 minutes after that, we doubled it. And it almost put the game out of sight at that point as well. Facundo Buonanotte, another set piece, by the way, goal.
I can't believe my eyes. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Those lofted balls over to Dunk at the back post are becoming quite an asset to us. And there was Buonanotte again in the middle, just fox in the box. He's done that a few times now this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, right place, right time, I guess. But I think if you watch the replays over, you see Bonotte's his main thing is just to block the keeper, and just stop it so that Dunk can get through to the back. But it works, right? You see them lining up like a train, like what was it, like England did in like 2018 or whatever. Um, it something's changing, right? The set piece coaches finally started turning up or something like that. So it's good. I mean, you've got two very good headers of the ball. You've got some foxes in the box, as you say. And Buonanotte's there again, right? What is that? 3 goals in 5 games or something like that. He's got a good strike on him. He's right place, right time. He's starting to get there, isn't he?
He is, isn't he? There's 3 goals and an assist now. And it really is like yet again another example of a player coming in because his number was called. And essentially just like, hey, we have no one else. This is a lad that was going to go on loan for sure, from De Zerbi's words, for sure going on loan this season.
To the championship, arguably. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's took his chance. Jack Hinshelwood the same. Both of those this season stand out as ones that had no right being as important as they have been this season. Of course, we've lost Jack now for the rest of the season with foot surgery, but it's just yet another case of another Brighton and Hove Albion youngster coming in and taking a role that they never expected to be given this early. And yet, once again, he's making it his own, isn't he? Like, it's becoming a very nice headache for De Zerbi to have come March 1st when we've got Pedro back, Fati fully fit, and Ciso fully fit, Buonanotte, Adingra, Mitoma, Welbeck, like Ferguson. We've got suddenly an abundance of players going into the Europa League and the final stretch of the Premier League, haven't we?
Yeah, and it does strike that question we were talking in January. Like we need a winger to cover these sort of areas and bits and pieces, or we need another attacking midfielder of some sorts. But then Brian Hill's going to say no if you've got 8 or 9 people that are going to be there March 1st, right? You've got a headache within the club, let alone bringing one more in. So, there's hindsight to everything. Of course there is, right? If you lose that game yesterday, this is a very different conversation. But we talked about it right at the top, just how important these 2 wingers are. Adingra just come back from the Ivory Coast, straight into the starting 11, right? We need him there, and we're not going to rush Fati because it's just too much of a risk. So whack him straight in there. Buonanotte, now 3 goals and assists, like you said, just doing this role and being able to do it and being able to intertwine. And then all of a sudden, Enciso's back, gives you a different avenue completely. It's good, right? And you've got a bunch of young players that are able to come in and make a difference. They just need a little bit of time to adjust.
Yeah, I mean, Enciso's been back in training for quite a while now. I think the conversation is he'll be back towards the end of the month, fully ready to be on the bench. Pedro is the same. Obviously, that hamstring injury put him out for about 4-5 weeks, which is about standard for that kind of grade 2 strain, which is pretty much what the agreement was that he had. So good to see him coming back in a timely fashion. You never know when those things could just get exacerbated and worse. But if there's anyone we need for our European campaign, it's João Pedro. So I'm really glad to see him coming back.
Timed it very well, hasn't he? So yeah, it seems he'll be back just in time.
Yeah, definitely. Got the goal, 1-0 up, and within 4 minutes, Danny Welbeck put a second one on the board. He was absolutely gutted when that ball wasn't passed to him first time. I don't know if you saw it. He was absolutely livid until it was palmed out to him. And then he was obviously absolutely buzzing. But if you go back and watch it at any point, watch the first delivery in, and he's absolutely raging that he doesn't get that ball squared to him. And then within maybe 2 seconds, it bounces out to him to slot in. Danny Welbeck, as you say, there's been lots of conversation about Welbeck and what he can offer this team. In the last couple of years, he's had long stretches injured, which really trouble the patience, especially of myself, when I just hate the fact that he's always hurt. But when he plays, and you've got a player like Evan Ferguson, who's a little bit off the boil this season, again, only 18, it's okay. We're not worried about it. But for Danny Welbeck to suddenly turn back into the Danny Welbeck we know and love, right? With the Pele memes. Like, it's the welcome return, isn't it? Like, he's become really important, especially during this really tough time injury-wise.
Yeah, and he's so experienced, right? You look at his thing. I think people are sharing around that he's now he's scored more goals for Brighton than any other club he's been at, right? I think we can pull that up, or you can look at it. But he scored 21 goals for us now. That sounds like a lot more than it actually feels like, but he's important. And he's able to lead that line. He's able to win those headers. He's able to be in the right place at the right time. And if it's not for him, it's for others. So he's great. And I think with Evan Ferguson not firing on all cylinders, you kind of need that spearhead at the top and be able to make things happen. And he does. He's really good. And I think he does need to be signed on for at least another year or two. And I hope that happens.
Yeah, I think he will as well. I really do. I know there's been some tweets and stuff about whether he will or won't he, but I think he will. If we've been able to get the deal done twice already, I don't see it being too much of a problem.
It seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it? Like, who else are you going to bring in of that caliber or of that experience and be able to have them slot in? It doesn't make any sense. So hopefully it happens.
With the impact on the dressing room too, right? Like, it's undeniable, right? Like, the impact he has on the dressing room. Like, for one, like, you can't separate him from his son. Like, Tarek needs it, so like, he needs to stay. Shortly after the 2 goals, as you say, almost 15 minutes after the red card, and now 2-0 down, Chris Wilder then decides to take off Osula and bring on Trusty, and the rest of the half really becomes a little bit like the Albion Ajax game. I don't know if you remember that at the Amex, where we essentially just sat in their half for half an hour and didn't manage to score, but they never did anything. They looked really poor. And it felt like that's essentially what happened for the next 30 minutes until half time, didn't it? Like, it was really quite our feet went off the gas a little bit, and Sheffield United's feet never got on it. They just damage limitation, maybe. Like, I don't know.
I mean, we spoke about sort of their record in bits and pieces, and again, it's unfair because they're down to 10 men. But even with 11 players, you should go there and expect to win, given their points tally at the moment, given their record and their recent results. Right, they beat Luton Shaw, but the caliber of teams, and I guess the comparing us to, you should be heading there and beating them with 11 anyway. So when it gets to 2-0 up and you're a man up against this sort of team that's just 10 men behind the ball, damage limitation, it is going to be hard to break down until they tire. And also, there's no point exerting yourself either, right? This is a marathon and not a sprint, right? You've got people coming back from injury. Let's just, if we can cruise control, why not? And I know that's annoying for some fans who want to see an outright goal fest, which they did in the end anyway. But you need those periods of the game where you can just rest and maybe just control and let the time run out. And that's fine. It's exactly what we did, and they didn't really have anything anyway. And even if they did, they were down to 10 men.
Yeah, it was really poor, and it does feel like they're almost giving up at this point. It feels like the season is almost just the towel being thrown in, right? It's just really poor from them. I would expect a lot more from a Sheffield United side that, you know, they've done this already. They've been up just a couple of years ago. You would think that they would have a little bit more canniness to them, but they're just shocking, and they're starting to actually break records, aren't they? With records that no one wants. I think they've now conceded more goals at this point in their season than any team has. I think it's by 4 already, which probably leads to they're going to end up shipping more goals than any team in Premier League history has, which is
they're on track for 100. Like, I think if you extrapolate out for the rest of the 11 games, like, what are they, 65 at the moment? They've still got 11 games to play. It's
scary, isn't it?
It is ugly. And if PGMOL really want to take a look at that tackle, they'll be out without Mason Holgate for a while, which is probably a benefit to them anyway.
I was gonna say, you took the words out of my mouth. It's probably doing them a favor, to be honest.
I was just saying it. I was like, actually, that's not even a good point at all.
It's probably a benefit. And from what I can see from most Sheffield United fans, there are a couple of deluded idiots, but there always are. It seems like the majority of Sheffield United fans also see it as a bit of a bonus that he ain't going to be around for a while. So maybe this is not an irregular thing with him, although this was particularly suicidal, perhaps, in its ability to take the ball off of someone. Halftime comes and goes. 2 substitutions made at halftime. Igor on for Adam Webster. Tarek Lamptey off for Jakub Moda. Jakub Moda comes on and plays the actual midfield role he is actually meant to be playing. Pascal Gross drops back into a fullback position, and Igor obviously slots in into the back line as well. Becomes a bit of a back 3, hybrid back 4. There's a lot of players happy to push backwards if they need to, Gilmore, Gross, and others. But the domination didn't stop at all, did it? We continued to just kind of knock at the door, really. I think in the second half, we had 81.2% possession. I mean, that's just absolutely insane. What did you make of Adam Webster's day yesterday, Craig?
I mean, I don't want to... His chest passes probably need some work. I think as people have just pointed out, I think he tried that one too many times. But otherwise, it's hard to give a real depiction on a game like that. And I think that's when I sort of was like, oh yeah, we need to record this today. It's like, this is such a isolated game to try and talk about and analyze to an extent because it's so far-fetched. I think taking him off at halftime is the right choice. I think if he's not fully up to fitness or if he just needs a little bit of a rest or you want to switch things up, I think he's the right person to take off. I still like him. I just think he's down the pecking order. I just don't think he's at Van Hecker or Dunk's level. I think Igor's actually probably more suited as well. It's a shame because he's done a lot for this club, right? But I don't think he's up to sort of full flight yet. And we've said this about him before, and it's annoying to say it again, but he needs a consistent run of games to get up to his level. He gets rusty, maybe more than other players do. It takes him a few games to get involved. But once he hits that level, he's very good. I thought he was okay. Nothing to write home about, but nothing to like desperately critique.
Yeah, I think the issue now is, of course, that there's too many options to allow him time to bed in, right? Like when you got Van Heck and Igor who can fill in so well now, like neither of them need
perpetual rust.
Yeah. It is interesting. There seems to be like a very much a split on the idea of his performance yesterday online as well. A lot of people saying he had a really good game. 93.8% pass accuracy was one of the big ones that they talked about a lot, which obviously is excellent. But also, if you want to twist it on its head, only Bonanotte, Dinger, and Welbeck had worse pass accuracy than that. So you can see why he's being brought off, right? As a right back, you can't be giving away possession more than most players. And if Welbeck's one of them that's a bit worse than you, it's Danny Welbeck up front. Who cares? And it was a bit of a heart in mouth moment every time he got the ball over on that right hand side and they crowded him because a lot of their breaks came from that area. And that was the scary part in that first half. Obviously, they came to nothing because Sheffield United are unbelievably wasteful, and it's lovely to have them break on us from taking a ball off of Alan Webster and then play a defense-cutting pass right into Verbruggen's arms because they're just horrendous. But he's going to get punished at a high level, and we've seen him get punished against teams that aren't Sheffield United. It's going to be tough to see a future with Adam Webster at the club, honestly, like after this year.
Yeah, I mean, I said he's down the pecking order, but he's also at right back yesterday, which isn't his position, and he should not be. He should not be playing there. So, that's not an absolute defense, right? Pass accuracy aside, especially against 10 men, right? That's not great. Some of his touches were just a little bit rusty, as we said, but also he's playing in a position that he should not be asked to be playing in, and that's sort of why I brought up the whole Joel Veltman thing as well, is that no one should feel comfortable with Webster at right back because he's not a right back. So that's probably my defense. But also, you're right, is that he's not up to the caliber, especially when you fill in and rotate. He's just not a rotation option because he takes a while to get up to speed.
Yeah, he's not consistent enough. We're lucky that both the keepers are, really. Like, we're lucky that both keepers are consistent enough to just throw in, because there are many a keeper that if you throw them in the way that we're continuously rounding them around, they would be flapping everywhere. Like, we're lucky. Yeah. We're very lucky.
I still don't believe it, to be honest. So yeah. And we said about it earlier in the season as well. Like, this rotation's killing us. We're losing games that we shouldn't lose. Yeah, here we are, 25 games in, 7th. So
yeah, the pressure continued after half time. Like, it was basically same game, like same as after the 2 goals. They did hit us on the break a couple of times in that time, though. James McAtee in particular, with a couple of really dangerous breaks. And some excellent distribution from Fotheringham, to be fair. Let's give him his due. He pinged that ball down there. Jason Steele was looking on from the bench, very proud of him, I'm sure. They were very Steele-esque. Some of them were over the top, really good balls. Thankfully, McAtee is not a very good footballer. So he didn't make the most of any of them. But who is a good footballer is Jan-Paul van Hecke, because he was the reason that a lot of those came to nothing. He was the one furthest back, playing almost in that middle of the 3 at times. One, it's lovely to see another centre-back happy to play in that middle of the 3 instead of just relying on Dunk now. It gives us such a better option when we're rotating around that back line. And 2, he's quicker than Dunk because he's like 24 years old. So that means that we don't see poor old Dunky labouring back at 31 or 32 or whatever he is. And the tackles he put in yesterday, I mean, there was 2 very dangerous breaks, I recall, that he outright just individually won the battle. That could have easily been a foul, could have easily given the ball away, and could have easily been, in a position to get sent off as last man. And yet he won the ball so cleanly both times that I think it was McAtee twice, didn't even appeal. Like, it was that good. Like, we were talking about him in the summer. What does the future look like for Jan-Paul van Hecke? Not only from a playing personnel situation, we're seeing him on all of the social media channels now. Like, he is such a big personality as well. The sky is the limit for Jan-Paul van Hecke, isn't he? For a team that has a real legacy of bringing through cult hero centre-backs from, the days of Mark Lawrence and all the way through Danny Cullip, all the way through to Lewis Dunk now. Gordon Greer was a big one back in the day. Adam El Abd, right? Like, we're known for these centre-backs becoming cult hero status. JP looks like the next one in line, doesn't he?
Yeah,
for a long time.
And it's wild how the 6 months changes, right? And you're saying, here we are, JP's one of the first names on the team sheet, and how good he is. He did what he needed to do yesterday. I think he's very good. And by proxy, Dunk is also so good that you can put him at any point in that 3 and he's still absolutely incredible. So being able to have even the option of putting JP at the center and having Dunk either side is wild. So we're spoiled a little bit, and we wouldn't have said that a while back, right? And I hope he keeps on keeping on, right? Like you said, he can get even better, which is even wilder. So we'll see. I think there was one. I'm going to say it because otherwise I'll forget, but Billy Gilmore also saved us yesterday as well, because I thought he was also very good. Those breaks were coming because, like you said, the distribution was good and McAtee was making good runs. Even though he can't control the football, he can make those runs. So being able to be there, and also Billy Gilmore being the furthest midfielder back as well, and being able to do that defensive duty as well was important. So Gilmore's becoming this Mr. Consistent as well, alongside JP, someone that you can just rely on and go, right, I have full faith in what these guys are doing. And it's good. It's exactly what you need.
He's becoming the 2020s Liam Bridcutt of Brighton and Albion, isn't he? Like, he plays that holding role so well, though. Like, and he's not super, like, he's not like a big boy. He's not like a Bissouma. He's not like a Caicedo, rather, or a Baleba, that's presumably in the future. Like, he's not a big lad, powerful, strong guy. Like, he's very much in that Liam Bridcutt role of like really low center of gravity, makes it hard to lose the ball, like strong on the ball, and makes those great challenges because he is little. I think it helps, like, being able to just poke, poke the ball away. It's wild. He's undergone a hell of a transformation post court case, really.
And for sure, yeah, and thankfully all that stuff is behind him now as well. At least I hope so. But I always sort of, especially the last few games, is that I don't notice him at all, and that's a good thing. Is that I don't see him, and it's like, okay, if I haven't seen Gilmour for 90 minutes, it means that he's doing his job right, and that's exactly what you want from a defensive midfielder. Again,
felt a bit bad for him yesterday, though. He's still not got a goal, senior goal, and you're just like, come on, like this is the day. And he took a couple of shots, didn't he? But it just wasn't coming.
Yeah, a couple of rugby conversions, but it'll be there. I just hope it's a really bad goal as well. Like I don't want it. I no longer want it to fly top bins. I want it to trickle over the line and barely hit
like a Calderon off his face goal.
Just something accidental, and it just be like, right, there you go. It's sort of the gods giving you what you want.
I could hear mumbling in the crowd all around me too. It wasn't just one conversation. I think there may have been a minor riot if we'd have got a penalty and they hadn't given it to him, because there was just like separate pockets of conversation I was hearing of like Gilmour's got to get a penalty if you give it him, or like every free kick at the edge of the box needs to go to Gilmour today. Like we've got to get him a goal. Like I think if they'd have got a spot kick and they hadn't have given it to Billy, I think you may have seen like half of that away crowd stand on the pitch. Like they are willing it in for him. And you know what, with 75 minutes on the clock, the pressure finally told. It is an exhausting job playing 10v11. I can only imagine how exhausting it is playing 10v11 against Roberto De Zerbi's Brighton and Hove Albion. I can only imagine how exhausting it is playing against that 11 with 10 against two real-life wingers now, one of them coming back from the AFCON and one of them being Kaoru Mitoma, replaced by Ansu Fati shortly after the goal as well. Ansu Fati coming on shortly after the goal, but the goal really came from Mitoma, who terrorized that left-hand side all day long. Thankfully, the injury did nothing at all to him somehow. I don't know what his legs are made of, but like we need to study them at some point, because
bionic.
They should not be able to have done what they did. But whip the ball in, and it's one of those ones where it could go anywhere if someone gets a touch on it. And unfortunately for Jack Robinson, it went in the back of his own net. And at that point, the heads were fully down, and it was over, wasn't it? It was a matter of how many at that point.
Yeah, I thought at 2-0, I thought we were just cruising, right? And was like, right, we'll pile on some pressure, but we're not going to go balls to the wall, because if they get one back, then it gets a little bit dicey. So it's like, okay. And Mitoma's so good. I don't think people, I think people do realize how good he is, but just he can beat everyone. Like, it doesn't matter who's playing at right back, regardless of what league, Europa League, whatever. 1v1, he's untouchable. Like, and you just terrorize a right back for 90 minutes or 75 minutes in yesterday's case. And eventually you'll get this cross in where it just goes in that no man's land, quote unquote. And if the defender doesn't touch it, then we do. And that, like you said, that's it, right? You get to 3-0, the heads really drop, the legs start going. And we have another winger that can go for 90 minutes plus more, despite being in Africa 4 days ago.
Yeah. Actually, we missed a talking point. That was their goal shortly before halftime. That never was.
Yes. Yep.
One of the most confusing VAR moments I've ever had from standing inside a football ground, because there was such a roller coaster of emotions where, from my point of view, he was clearly offside. Like, he looked miles offside. I didn't see all the intricate touches beforehand with the goalmouth scrambly bit, so obviously it could have not been, but like he was in front of the line. He was absolutely offside. So I thought it was going to be ruled out. Then it looked like it was ruled out. And then the ref went to the VAR monitor, and you're like, just Sheffield United fans celebrating, because presumably he's going to turn it over to give the goal. The Brighton players think the goal is being given too, because they start moving back to their positions to kick off. Everyone's not knowing what's going on. He stood there for what feels like ages, comes back, has a big, long conversation with Dunk and I can't pronounce their captain's name, and I'm not even going to try.
Yeah.
Has a long conversation with both of them, and everyone is like, what is going on? Like, why is he talking to them? After, like, I've never seen anything like it. Gives the VAR motion, points towards the centre spot, Sheffield United fans go up in art, like absolutely delighted. The Albion move back to take a free kick. We're confused. They're confused. And it realizes that he wasn't pointing to the spot. He was pointing in the direction as a foul was given. And the foul he gave it for wasn't the foul it was given for. From watching it on TV, like what was your experience of that? Because inside the ground, it was the peak advertisement for why the VAR process for people inside the grounds is an utter nightmare. Like for you watching it, like were the commentators able to keep up? Were you like what was going on for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, on the TV it wasn't much better. I think it's just because you have the commentators just trying to fill an empty void, right? And they're just speculating as much as everyone else is, and they go, "Oh, I think it's a goal. Oh no, I think this is happening," and it's just a play-by-play of just the same nonsense. So it's not any better. I think the transparent or the visibility, sorry, is obviously better on TV. You're seeing it being replayed about 40 times, right? And still going, this still doesn't make any sense as to what's going on. I thought it was going to be overturned for a goal just because it came off Buonanotte and it then becomes subjective. And I think the commentators, to their credit, they did quite well in explaining that and going, he's going over to the monitor because it is subjective. And, you know, you need the ref's opinion on this as to whether it was an actual dedicated, purposeful touch or whether it was a complete deflection. So on TV, obviously, it's a little bit better. You get the nice little replay it over and over again with a commentator spouting absolute nonsense, but it's more okay. I can make my own, I guess, my own evaluation of this and analysis and understand it. The ref is an idiot. Obviously, we identified that earlier with the Mason Holgate thing. It just doesn't help, and I think the visibility within the stadium would be helpful, but that again, it comes with its own consequences. But a perfect advertisement of how shoddy VAR can be. Ultimately, for me, the right decision. It just had to go and make 8 or 9 turns in order to get there, which isn't satisfactory or isn't what it was made for.
Yeah, I wish they would go to the NFL style and just head to the center circle and tell us exactly what the decision is and why they made it. At least we can understand. We can go home, watch Match of the Day later, or watch YouTube and disagree with them. Like, or we could get home and see Reddit is saying that they're horribly wrong. But like, at least we know in the moment. Like, doesn't need to be a debate. You're telling us why you made the decision. Job done. Like, that's it. Doesn't need to be any more than that.
Even if you disagree.
Exactly.
The transparency, rather than just putting something up on the little board saying decision made, no goal. There's no context. There's no why. There's no justification. I agree with you. I think it would be a good idea, at least to have something, just a snippet, right? This has been given as this because of this, right? And even if you disagree, at least there's closure to an extent, rather than just going, no.
Yeah, exactly. Once the goal had gone in 3-0, like we said, heads went down, except for Simon Dingus. He was unbelievable all day, really. 9 crosses, by the way, yesterday he put in, which is absolutely crazy in and of its own right. He got a tackle to his name. He got a clearance to his name. He blocked a shot. Offensively, absolute nutcase. 6 shots. That's more than anybody else in the team by double. 3 of those on target. 2 goals to his name. And just terrorize them all day long. We saw how effective he was on the left in that final for the African Cup of Nations. I presume he was effective in other games as well. Like yourself, I have to admit, I didn't watch a lot of it prior to the final. But on the right, he was just as much of a problem yesterday, wasn't he? And the 2 goals he got, one of them a bit of a lucky deflection, but I think if it wasn't deflected, it was an absolute powerhouse of a shot and would have caused problems anyway. He was just superb yesterday, wasn't he? Like, just unbelievably good.
Yeah, and defensively, he's very good as well. I think one of the things that we do see from our wingers is they have to come back and they have to defend. So being able to come back on the odd occasion that he had to yesterday was important. But he's just threatening. Again, like similar to Matoma in a way. It's just he's so direct and I guess unpredictable in his nature. He's just really good. The first finish is incredible, by the way. Just being able to direct that into the near post, like no goalkeeper has a chance of that. And the second goal, a very small, tiny part of me wanted Ferguson to touch that because he needed that. He was so close to getting a touch on it to claim it, but he didn't. I felt like he really needed that. But you're talking another 5 goals at Bramall Lane. I think one of the funniest things I read yesterday was I think they've scored 12 goals at home and we've scored 10 goals at Bramall Lane this season. So it's not great for them, but also very good for us.
It's bad, isn't it?
it's another good day out, a very important result for us. And they didn't make it easy for themselves at all, but it was a good day. And like you said, you were there, so you get to lap up all the proceedings.
Yeah, they were right in front of us as well, which was the benefit of being super low.
That was a good photo. Yeah,
it was great. All right, we got about 10 minutes left. So first things first, Everton next. We will come back to the game because there's one last thing we want to finish on. Everton next, classic trap game for us if there ever has been, at home to Sean Dyche after such an excellent victory. They play Palace tonight, so they're on a shorter week than most. Big one, do you think, this weekend? We really need to make something out of this result.
It is, yeah. They're getting up to bogey team levels, I think. Well, just Sean Dyche is just a bogey for us. So it's important to get something from that. Do I think we will? It's a coin toss for me completely. It depends entirely on the first 10, 15 minutes. But yeah, we have to crack on from here. I think you're 7th. You're about 6 points away from 6th with Man United winning yesterday. It's a game you have to win, and also I like to see Everton down there in the relegation zone anyway. So it's something that I desperately want to happen. But with our wingers back, with no injuries coming through, you've got a week to prepare. Fatty, Veltman are all getting back up to speed, and you've got a lot of people to choose from. It's important, and we're going to have a strong team now. We can safely say that team is going to be strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give Green King their shout out, and then we're spending the last 8 minutes dedicated to one man in particular. So we are pleased to announce that this episode of Together BHA podcast is sponsored by Green King Sport, where football is more than a game. They have Green King Sport venues showing every single televised Brighton fixture over the 23-24 season. That included yesterday against Sheffield United. And with more than 900 sports pubs across the UK, it doesn't matter where you're based, you can watch every single minute of the action. If you download the app today, you won't just get 10% off all drinks anytime there's any match on the TV. But for this month, there's also thousands of pints of free Guinness to be won and the chance to win one of 6 holidays. So get on it. All right. Last but definitely not least, couple of different stats. First of all, since De Zerbi took charge of Brighton, I don't know if you've seen this stat, Brighton have the most away goals in the Premier League. 70 goals away from home since De Zerbi took over. The next best in that time frame is Newcastle on 63, Liverpool on 61. So it's not even close. Like, it's outrageously far ahead. But let's talk about the man I want to sit here and chat a little bit about for now. Der Kaiser himself, I'm sure you're expecting this. Can't be a shock to many. I'm just going to rattle off some tweets that I've been saving for today. Opta Joe, we all love a bit of Opta. Against Sheffield United, Pascal Gross created 8 chances, completed 110 passes, and had a 97.3% pass accuracy rate. He is the first player on record from 03-04, when Opta's records began, to create that many chances, while also completed 100 plus passes with an accuracy of over 90%. Does sound a bit of a niche stat, but when you put them all together, you realize actually, like, they're putting together as many stupidly hard things to achieve as possible, and he's done it anyway.
It's a high barrier to entry. Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Got himself an assist, 9 key passes, 2 big chances created. Obviously played the full 90 minutes in, I think, 4 different positions. He's got 2 goals and 8 assists from his last 12 Premier League games. He plays everywhere: right back, left back, centre half when needed, central defensive midfielder, centre midfielder, on the right, on the left, attacking midfielder, false 9 under Potter at times. Like, this guy has done anything and everything you could want him to do as a footballer, and he just does it without any drama, without any issue. Like £3 million. We've talked about this a ton of times. Like, obviously, we've talked about it a ton. He's clearly an all-time Albion great at this point. Like, it's done. But the efficiency he goes about is unbelievable. Like, how would you describe Pascal Gross in one word?
I don't even know. Like you can use so many superlatives for him, can't you? In just what he does and how well he does things. I think you said it's a borderline like German efficiency of what he does, and just how he's able to do these things. And being with us 7 years now, and he looks better now than he did 7 years ago. He's now he's running further. He's doing more. He's putting more on the board. He's helping other people out even more than he ever has done. He's in the Germany squad, and rightly so. Just what he does is so good, and it makes me think, like, what are we going to do when he actually does retire or move on or whatever? It doesn't even come into my thought process. Just incredible as always. And yeah, like you said, those stats, they sound long-winded because they have to be, because he's breaking so many records and breaking so many things. Assist creation, goal, chances, everything. He's incredible. That's your word. A long-winded way of just saying
yeah, unbelievable. He's just so unbelievably underrated. I can't believe that we are still in a position where he's not being talked about by everybody. But once again, like, he's just there near the top of our stat sheets every single season.
Top of the Premier League sheets, right? Just in general. Yeah. I think he started getting his plaudits a little bit more when he made the Germany squad, and everyone was like, absolutely, rightly so. Yeah, cool. People don't realize how good this person or this player is. I think similar when we spoke about Welbeck as well, just I'm sure in the dressing room and just his work ethic and just around the place in general also helps. It's a guy that's been there and done that. It's just, what a player. What a player.
And scores the big goals too, right? Like, that he is the guy. Like, we've talked about it a few times. Like, if we need a player to come in clutch to get us something, whether it's a crossing, whether it's a cutback, whether it's a goal, like, he's all the defense splitting pass, whatever you want, really. Like, blocking tackle, got goal saving tackle. Like, he's the guy that's seemingly there.
Unbelievable, honestly. Yeah, it's a Pascal Gross podcast soon. But it's what can you say? What more can you say that hasn't already been said by our fan base? It's just, he's just wildly underrated by everyone else in the country.
Yeah, unbelievable. Love him. All right, I think that's about it. We'll be back next week for our, obviously, post-Everton conversation. Hopefully it's a good one like this one was. And yeah, best of luck to Dan Ashworth at his new job at Manchester United. Well, good luck to him. Fair play to him for just rinsing everybody.
Dan Cashworth, I think his name is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. It's just a wild trajectory for him. He's bouncing around. Like, good for him. Screw it. Why not? Get as much money as you can.
Just couldn't understand the Geordie accent. Had to move on. Like he's going to do any better with the Mancunian accent, but yeah.
That entire Manchester United team, really. Yeah, it's not going to be great, is it? But got a couple of games to be played this midweek as well. City, Brentford, Liverpool, Luton. Nothing really affects us too much, of course. So yeah, we're sitting pretty, 7th place. Goal difference has just got a beautiful little bit of a boost, which we desperately needed after a couple of poorer results in this season. The gap to 6th is tough, but there's always going to be at least one meltdown in that top 6. Just looking at those sides, you know there's at least one meltdown in them. So let's hope we are the team to make the most of it. And for Albion's sake, everybody needs to be cheering on Liverpool this weekend or the weekend after, whenever the Carabao Cup final is, because a Chelsea win, that takes 7th out of the equation, I believe. So we really need Liverpool to win that one.
Yeah, great shout.
All right, we'll see you all next week. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And hey, it can't get much better than witnessing what we witnessed this weekend. So have a good week, everyone, and stay safe.
Cheers all.